Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Land of Brand Laboratory, or as we like to call it, the LOBoratory for short. And if you've never joined us before, we meet every Wednesday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time, and we talk about different topics in branding, specifically building your brand in order to stand out and be able to share your message with the world. And we're all about expressing your personality and being yourself. And one of the things that comes along with many of our personalities is the ability to stay productive or not. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is how to stay productive and get leap done, because that's really the key to running a successful business is to be able to complete projects and keep moving forward. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk for probably about 20 minutes, and then I will open up the lines for questions. By lines, I mean the chat box. So on the right-hand side of your screen, if you would like to share some comments, what you think of the topic, things that works for you, things that don't work, as well as any questions that you have, I will be happy to respond to those at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and swap the screen over to my slides so that you can see what we are talking about. Let's make that full screen. Very good, very good. All right. All right, so today's topic is the productivity cycle, how to get it all done without doing it all at once. And here is the game plan. We're going to talk about why cycling is not just good for your health, set appropriate expectations, and cut down on your blood pressure medication, why picking projects is way better than picking your nose, and why you need to get help because you will need it, and giving the past some tender love and care. So I think sometimes in our businesses we expect a lot of ourselves. We expect that things are going to come easily and that things are not going to take very long to do. And the truth is that we can't do it all. And if you look at nature, nature cycles through the seasons. They don't try to blast you with snow, rain, sun, and clouds all at the same time. It goes through this natural cycle. And sometimes some cycles are shorter than others. Some years it's completely different than other years. So we are naturally built to cycle. We have sleep cycles and waking cycles, and we're more productive at certain times of the day than others. So you need to understand and hear nature and understand that you're not going to get everything done. You're not going to be able to always perform at the level that you want to be performing at. And oftentimes when you're making goals, they may be unrealistic depending on how you are feeling at that moment or how productive you can be, or if you are even familiar with that topic or not. Sorry, I see someone said on the chat, or they private messaged me that the display is a little bit blurry and out of focus. Try refreshing the screen, or try refreshing Webinar Jam and see if that works. All right, so when you're setting long-term goals, so usually when we sit down, we look at our goals. I usually do it toward the end of the year, so I'm actually going to start planning next year, probably in the next month or so. So I go from the end of the year, and then I look at the following year and what do I want to accomplish that year. And some of you may start at the beginning of the year, but usually we're planning things at least a year in advance. Sometimes we even look at a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. And some mistakes that we make when we do that is we set our goals, we set our revenue goals, we set our marketing goals, we set our number of clients that we want to be working with, and what we want our business to look like, and where we want to be spending our time. And we don't realize how much actually goes into accomplishing those goals. We kind of overwhelm ourselves by putting these numbers and these measurements to things that we don't actually understand quite yet how to get to. what you want to avoid when you're setting your long-term goals is to set the goals and then not look at the breakdown of how you're going to achieve those goals, and making sure that within that breakdown, all the things that you're going to have to do is realistic. And I'm all about setting goals that are really high and that are going to cause you to push yourself. That's totally okay, as long as you're being realistic when you are looking at what you have to do on a day-to-day basis. So what you want to do with your goals is you want to break them down into projects. So if I have a revenue goal, I need to break down what is it going to take for me to get to that revenue, and then work backwards from there. And we're going to talk more about projects, I think, on the next slide. And so before you even look at your projects, take your goals and break them down into 3-month cycles. So this way, if we plan our goal a year in advance, that's too far. We don't have a year-long attention span. We can't focus on one thing, achieving one thing for that amount of time. However, if we plan things quarterly, so a 90-day cycle or maybe even a 30-day cycle, it becomes much more manageable, and you know what you need to be doing when. So this is what I call the productivity cycle. And what it is you're planning your goals out in 3 months increments. So maybe we look at a year long, and then we look at, okay, if I have a goal to make $100,000 next year, then that means in the first quarter I need to generate at least 25,000. So that's the 3-month goal, 25,000. Okay, what do I need to sell to get there? What do I need? How much do I need to market in order to sell that much? And you kind of break it down from there. So then what you do is the cycle is more than just doing. So you plan out the activities that you're going to take. You plan your project for what you're going to accomplish in those 3 months. And then you spend time executing, so actually implementing that plan. And then at the end of the 3 months, you reflect. So you reflect on what worked, what didn't work, what your next steps are, if you achieve your goal or not, and then you plan the next cycle. So it's a cycle that goes over and over again. So you plan, you execute, and then you reflect. And then you choose your new projects, and you plan, execute, and reflect. And you just keep doing that. And as you're doing this, you're learning a very valuable skill. You're learning how to break your goals down. You're learning how to stay productive, and you're learning about yourself because you're reflecting, and you're discovering what works for you and what doesn't work for you, because that's going to be different for different people. What usually happens is that most coaches want everything done yesterday. They decide that, this quarter I want to put up a website, and it's any project, many coaches don't realize how much actually goes into creating a website, or how much goes into completing that project. So you want to avoid overwhelm by setting appropriate expectations. Give yourself time to figure these things out. And if you're patient and you trust the cycle, then your heart is going to thank you, because you're not going to be having a heart attack constantly, or overworking yourself. And you want to play within your means, basically. So let's talk about projects. So projects is really the stepping stones to this cycle. The projects are what you're planning, what you're executing, and what you're reflecting on. So let's talk about what a project is. So a project has a deliverable, and it has multiple steps. This is different than a to-do. So a to-do item is just, one line item. I'm going to write an email. That's a to-do. Starting a newsletter would be a project, because there's more than one thing to do with starting a newsletter. You need to get it designed. You need to write the emails. You need to decide what content you're going to be putting in. You need to decide on a timeline. You need to schedule them. You need to send it. There's all these different to-dos that are within that project. So if we're setting a goal, then we need to look at, what are the to-do, or what are the projects that go into creating that goal. And then you break the project down. So what is the deliverable? What are the milestones to creating that deliverable? And then what tasks or to-do need to be done for each milestone, and then you assign due dates. So let's break this down. Let's say My project is that I'm going to create a telesummit. So the deliverable is a telesummit. It's going to be a week long. I'm going to have 12 speakers, and I want to have 2,000 people attend. So then you break down the milestones. So the milestones would be I need to have all the speakers booked. I need to have all of the audios ready to go for the week. I need to have the website up. I need to have a marketing plan. So now you start looking at all these different milestones, and they're almost their own categories, and then you start breaking those down. So in order for me to have all the speakers booked, that means I need to define the dates. I need to decide who I'm going to invite. I need to send those invitations. I need to follow up with everyone and make sure that I get a yay or a nay. I need to schedule all of the interviews. I need to ask them for the required information, like their headshots and their bio and their topics. So you'll start to find, as you're breaking down these milestones, because you're looking at such a specific piece of information, such a specific deliverable, that then you can start thinking of all those things, all the details that you don't necessarily see when you're only looking at the big picture. And then the due dates are going to help you plan out when things need to be done in order to meet your deadline, so that 90-day deadline. And as you start assigning due dates and you're looking at all of these different milestones, even in that one project, you'll notice that there's going to be a lot of overlap. The website needs to be being done while you're inviting guests. The recordings need to be done sometimes even while the event is going on. So you'll start to see that there's a lot of overlap. And this allows you to really look at your schedule and see, is this really realistic in this timeline? A lot of times, so for example, a lot of people approach me to do telesummits, to be interviewed and be a part of their event, and they're asking me a month before the event starts. And one, that tells me that they haven't really planned this out very far in advance, and my marketing calendar is already booked out for a few months, so I'm not able to participate. So that's another thing to consider, is looking at your due dates and making sure that you're giving other people enough time to respond to the project and to get things done that you need done. So looking at your due dates, you're going to be able to see what's realistic and what's not with your schedule. And then you can reassess your expectations, and you may cut back on other projects. So a lot of times when you're planning out your projects, you'll pick 2 or 3 to do in a 90-day period, and you'll realize really quickly you're only going to be able to complete one of those, and that is okay. And that's why we set realistic expectations, and we're okay with giving ourselves that space and time to do something right. So pick projects that are matching your timeline and get help where you need it. So it doesn't mean that you have to do everything in the project yourself. You should be asking for help and getting help from people that know more about a topic than you do. So when you're picking your project, it should not just move you forward toward your goals, but you should also be honing new skills. So don't be afraid to pick a project on something that you haven't done before, something that you are going to learn a completely new skill, something that you can ask other people for help with, other people for advice. This is going to allow you to build new collaborative partnerships. And you may even do a joint venture with someone where you guys are working half and half on a project, and together you launch something awesome. And a project also, when you're finished, should make you feel really accomplished. So make sure that you're picking projects that are challenging to you, that are going to allow you to learn new skills, and they're going to allow you to collaborate with awesome people. And don't feel like you need to do what you're not good at. For example, if you're not a graphic artist, do not design your own website, because the end product is not going to be something you're proud of. If you suck at writing, try speaking or recording videos instead, or hire a copywriter. So do what is within your strengths. That doesn't mean, again, that you're not going to be stretching yourself, but don't feel like you have to do things that are just not going to represent your brand very well. Find other people that are good at what they do and learn from them. So if you are running a telesummit, look at other people that have done telesummits and look and learn from them. You might even get them on the phone and talk to them, or shoot them an email and ask questions and see, what worked, what didn't work. Or if you run into a problem, a very specific question, try shooting them an email and seeing if they answer. And you can also look at what they're doing as far as their autoresponders on their website, and the speakers that they have lined up, and learn about, seeing if their model works for you. Maybe some might have 12 speakers, some might have 5, some might have 20. Some might be charging for the event, some might be doing it for free. And you can ask them, what worked for you, because you'll find that you don't necessarily want to copy other people because you don't know if what they did worked or not. But you can definitely learn and get ideas by looking at other projects or other people that are doing similar projects to yours. So then the last part of the cycle is reflecting. So reflect on your results. What worked? What needs to be improved? What will you never ever do again? Oftentimes you'll pick a project and you'll start working on it and you realize that you will never do that again because it was too much work, it was not fun, and that's okay. That you've learned something. Or you might find, as far as never ever doing again, you may find that something just totally did not work for you. You did a product launch and it was a complete flop. And you learn from that mistake. You learn what does not work for you. And you know next time not to do that. So that's okay. You want to know what's awesome. What made your heart sing? What made you really inspired? What helped you get things done? What needs improvement? Well, I had this open rate, or I had this many people attend, but I think I could improve on that. And then the last part is reflect on your overall plan. So, as I said in the beginning, we're taking a year's worth of goals and we're breaking it down into quarterly segments. So look, are you still in alignment with your original goal? Or have things changed? Have you decided that, this first quarter you made 50,000, so now I'm going to change my end goal to reflect that? Or are you finding that, that revenue goal is a little too lofty and you're feeling like a failure for not reaching it, so you're going to back it down a little bit? And that's okay too. As long as you are stretching yourself, it doesn't mean you have to be totally unrealistic and down on yourself with your goals. And then what are the next steps? So what is the next project? What is the next piece of the puzzle that's going to move you toward your overall big picture goals? And then you pick your next projects and you plan your timelines, and then you go for your next 90 days. And it's so important that you take the time to do this reflection, that you take the time to look at and measure the results of what you've been doing. Because if you're just constantly doing and doing and doing and doing and doing, and you're not stopping and seeing what have I achieved or where have I fallen short, you're basically running your business blind. And you might find that you're doing way better than you thought you were, or you may look at the numbers and realize that all the efforts you're doing are not paying off and that you might want to shift and do something different. So doing that reflection at least quarterly, if not monthly. I basically pull all my numbers each month so that I can kind of keep the pulse on my business. And then quarterly, I sit down and I actually look at those numbers in relation to the goals and then make my plan for the next quarter. And that's really important that you take that time for yourself and your business. So why does the productivity cycle rock? Well, it takes the pressure off and it's going to make you more productive. So taking the pressure off as in you're actually looking at your projects, you're looking at your timelines, and you're realizing what's realistic and what's not. It means that you're not operating blind and you're not going to get halfway through a project and realize that, there's just no way you're going to be able to complete it on time. You know that up front. And that way you don't feel as much of a failure. You know that you can reassess and readjust and change expectations so that you don't have to be down on yourself later. Picking your projects this way will help you grow as an entrepreneur as well as grow your network. So by picking your projects, you're going to be consistently growing and learning new skills. You're going to be meeting new people and finding new collaborative partners. And what you might find is that as you start implementing this cycle, maybe when you start, you're only able to complete one project every cycle, like one big picture project. But then as you start getting better at this and better at this and better at this, and you start honing your skills, you may find that now you can do 2 projects, now you can do 3 projects. It's really just building the right habits and learning about your craft, and you'll get more and more efficient, and then things will start happening a lot quicker with your quicker. You have to be patient with yourself, especially if you're a new entrepreneur, or especially if you're doing things you haven't done before. Be patient with yourself. Allow yourself to learn. And the past is the key to the future. So many people forget to reflect on what they learned and revisit where they're going. And don't make that mistake, because it will help you, even if you just take one day every couple of months to look at your numbers and look at your goals and just see where you're measuring up. It's going to help you refocus your business and stay on track. So what about you? Are there any tips you have for staying productive? And have you tried something like this cycle before? Or do you have any questions? And I see that there's a couple questions in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and look at those. But first, while the rest of you are typing in questions or comments, let's talk about what we're going to cover next week. So next week, we are going to have a non-traditional laboratory call. In fact, it's not going to be a laboratory call. We're going to use that time slot to do a webinar on your brand treasure map, how to plan your client attracting brand. So as you guys may have seen, the branding game is reopening next Wednesday. How convenient. So next Wednesday, the branding game is reopening. If you haven't seen the training video series, you can shoot me an email, holly@thelandofbrand.com, and I'll send you the link. The second video should be coming out tomorrow, so I'll be emailing that to everyone as well. And on Wednesday, we're going to do kind of a recap webinar, and we're going to talk about how to plan your client attracting brand. So actually, what pieces do you need to plan, and what decisions do you need to make in order to have a brand that really reflects who you are and is going to attract the best clients for you. And that's going to be basically a preview to the branding game. So we'll be doing that on Wednesday at 12 o'clock Eastern. So if you are planning to attend, it's going to be a lot longer than our normal laboratory call. Usually those calls last between 60 and 90 minutes. But they are content packed. So if you've never been to one of these preview calls before, definitely come, because yes, at the end you will have the option to buy the product, but in the presentation, you're going to learn a ton about planning your brand. All right, so let's look at some questions. Anne says, Holly, what is it reasonable to expect in terms of project scale and number of projects in a 1 to 3 month cycle? In 1 3 month cycle. Let's say the coach is doing everything herself, part 1 of your answer, and let's also say she has a very small team, part 2. Okay. I like how you've organized this question. So the number of projects you can do is largely going to depend on you, what the projects are, and what your capacity is, how much time you have. So for example, when I was writing this, I found it very interesting because I was thinking about this actual presentation is from 2 years ago when we first started the laboratory. At that time, I was in a mentoring program with Michael Port. And this was actually what inspired this presentation. Was we met every quarter and we would reassess our goals, and we'd set new goals, and we'd pick our projects. So what was really interesting is, because I was looking at these notes in this presentation that I basically just repurposed for today, I realized that back then I could literally only do 1 project every quarter. I could only do, create 1 program, or I could only implement 1 more marketing strategy. And what I have found, fast forward 2 years later, is now I've shortened my cycle down to about a month. So instead of taking 3 months to do something, now it only takes me a month, and sometimes it only takes me a week, depending on what it is. And the reason for that is the projects that I'm doing now are very similar to the ones I was doing 2 years ago, but I'm much faster. I've learned a lot more and I can make decisions much more quickly. And I've honed my content so that I don't have to come up with, it's just it comes very naturally now. So I think you'll find that when you're starting out, it's going to take you longer to complete a project than if it's something that you've been doing over and over again. So for example, we're relaunching the branding game next week. This is probably, trying to think, I think this will be the fourth time that we've run it live. And then there was another one launch in there where I launched a home study version of the course. So, and this is the first time that I've been able to complete the 3 training videos. I've tried doing it before, and that was my project for the 90 days, and I just could not do it. And this time I'm doing it within about 2 weeks. So sometimes, you feel like a failure because like I said, I tried doing this project multiple times. I have so many trashed videos on my computer, it's ridiculous. Because I didn't have enough time to get all 3 done, or I couldn't edit them, or the content just wasn't coming, and then my deadline passed, so I just decided to change my plan. And you have to be flexible like that. You have to be able to kind of roll with the punches and change your plan halfway through if it's not working, and then you try it the next time. And you just keep trying, and you'll find that you'll learn and grow, and these things will become much easier for you. So that's if you have, and that's if you have a team or no team. It really doesn't matter. It's going to be based on, how long has your team been working together? Who is on your team? How much can they handle? Is this something that's completely new to them as well? So if you have a team, chances are you're going to be able to do things a little bit quicker from the get-go. But on the other hand, there's still a learning curve when you're doing a project for the first time. So be patient with yourself, be patient with your team, and know that the first time is always the hardest when you're choosing a new project, whether that be a product launch, whether that be a telesummit, will that be launching some kind of marketing initiative, creating a podcast, whatever it is that you're doing as your project. It'll be easier the next time around because the first time you are learning what needs to be done. I'm working with a client right now. We're working one-on-one, and we're creating and launching a home study program. And it's so funny because every time we meet, she says, I didn't realize how much goes into this. So how many autoresponders she had to write. So, there's an autoresponder for before she did a webinar, and then after she did a webinar, and now she has to do her follow-up for the webinar, and then she has to do the autoresponder for the program itself. Like, that's just the autoresponder. There's 4 different ones. That's like 12 emails she has to write. And those things take a lot of time. But until you've gone through that project, you wouldn't even know that you need to create all that. You don't realize how many pages you have to create on your website just to launch your product or a program. So it does help to have someone that's done it before walk you through and help you, plan out your project and know what you need to create before you actually start. But if you're alone, like I was, especially when I started out, you just kind of figure things out as you go, and you allow yourself the time to do that. So that was a very long-winded answer, and I hope you got what you needed, Anne, out of that. Kim says, so do you plan all of your projects around a 3-month cycle? Yes and no. I don't plan all my projects around a 3-month cycle because not all of my projects take 3 months. But what I do is look at 3 months and what my goals are, and then I pick projects that I'm going to do within those 3 months. So, in the next 3 months, I might, I'm doing the branding game right now, and then we're going to be doing a product launch mastermind, and then I'm planning things. I'm going to need to plan my courses for next year. So those are 3 different projects that are going to be taking place over the next 3 months, but I'm not doing them all right now. So I'm starting with the branding game. Once that project is finished, then I'm going to start the mastermind, and then when that's done, then I start mapping out everything for the next year and getting all of my pieces in place for January when the new year starts. So yes, I pick what I'm going to do for the next 3 months, but they're not all taking 3 months. And you just kind of choose, you look at your deadlines and you kind of plan them accordingly. So great question. Kim says, I've not tried the 3-month cycle, but I will now. Definitely recommend. Anne says, can you speak to when something blows up in your face, interrupting the project during the 3-month cycle? Example, I was on track with my first webinar and had to move my server, which resulted in a year's worth of lost data. So now I'm rebuilding the site, not what I planned. That is so sad, Anne. I am so sorry. I have dealt with similar things, so I totally understand. And this is where, when something blows up in your face, you stop and you reflect and you readjust your expectations. So, if you do your first webinar and, all hell breaks loose, you can't do the next one, then that's okay. You let the people know what's going on, in that you'll keep them updated. You fix what needs to be fixed, and then you move on. So you basically, you create a plan B for how you're going to complete your goal. And again, you have to allow yourself time to figure things out. So what I like to do is, when I have a crisis, is I give myself about 10 minutes to freak out and cry and scream and kick things. I'm actually not that dramatic. I do give myself 10 minutes to freak out, but I'm not very physical about it. I just kind of sit there. But everyone's different. So you give yourself about 10 minutes to freak out and, let yourself experience that emotion. And then you snap yourself back to reality. You stop, you see what's wrong. What can I salvage from this? What are my next steps? And then you basically replan your project. You replan the project, you readjust the deadlines, and you move on. And that's really all you can do. Kind of like when I was just talking about previously, the branding game launch, I've never been able to do the 3-video launch that I've wanted to do. And I'm so excited about the videos that we're putting out this time around, because I've been working on these for so long. And previous to this, I've recorded these videos multiple times and wasn't able to get them done for my deadlines, and then I had to readjust. So I stopped, said, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this for the deadline. Either I don't launch the branding game, or I move the dates up a couple months, which was not an option, or I do plan B, which is to run a different style launch. And that was just a webinar. Basically, I just did a preview webinar the last few times that I'd run it. And then you adjust, you reflect and adjust. Did that work? Did it not work? Do I still think the videos would, work better? Yes. And we'll see. So this is an experiment that we're running right now. Will people like these videos? Will they explain the branding game a little bit more clearly? So everything you're doing is an experiment, and you have to let yourself experience and experiment and see what's working, and don't be afraid to come up with a plan B if things aren't going as planned. So I totally feel for you, Anne, and I hope you can get that worked out, because I'm so proud of you. This is the Anne that I'm thinking of. I'm so proud of what you've been doing the last couple months. You're amazing. Kim says, Holly, you always give so much value. I appreciate you. Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. Jillian says, thank you for a great call. And you're right. You have to be adaptable in growth. Perfect. Anne says, yes, thanks. That must have answered her question. Fantastic. Great. So I don't see any more questions coming in. I hope you all have a fantastic day. I hope you can make it next week to the brand treasure map call. We have a lot of awesome content planned. So bring your notebooks, and of course there will be a replay if you're not able to make it for the whole time. So I understand, laboratories are usually around 30 to 45 minutes, and this is probably going to be twice that. So if you can carve out the time in your day, fantastic. If not, you can catch the replay to watch what you miss. And I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I will see you soon. Bye.